I've seen a couple of you talk about too expensive. Okay. So let me give you a slight nuance and definition. So we're going to define some terms here, just let you know what's happening in a customer's mind. So as you're dropping down and showing them different options, you got to understand there's a difference. So we got their notes. I don't have my pen, but your notes. There is a difference in I can't afford it and it's too expensive. There's a difference between hearing I can't afford and it's too expensive. I love hearing I can't afford it. That's an easy problem to solve. I can't, or like it's too expensive. Here's what that means. If a customer tells you it's too expensive, what it means is I wouldn't buy it if I had the money because I don't think it's worth the money. I can't afford it means I like this, I love it, it just doesn't fit my budget. So there is an important thing to like parse out. Now, sometimes customers say too expensive, but they're like, "Oh no, we love Cutco. It's really amazing. It's just too expensive." What they're really saying is too much for my budget. But there are sometimes customers that are like, "Yeah, I don't know. That's just too expensive." Just meaning like, so here's the difference for me. Um, if I had all the money in the world, I think that a Bugatti Veyron is still too expensive. I'm probably not going to drop $3.6 million on a car, no matter how much money I have. Now, like a McLaren though, $300,000 car if I had, all the money in the world, like that's just too expensive or that's just I can't afford it. I would have that car, I just can't afford that car right now. But too expensive means even if I had the money, I wouldn't buy it, right? So, the way you handle an objection, if you want to write this down, is to handle it before it comes up. The greatest salespeople in the world just handle objections before they come up. And how do you handle most all of those objections before they come up? Well, it really comes down to doing a great job on the front half of the presentation, which leads me to my next point, Brooke, which is that telling isn't selling. If you want to write that down, you're not paid to be a tells person, you're paid to be a salesperson. So telling isn't selling. So let me give you a little flavor, if you will, on this first part of the presentation when you're building value. Because remember, when the value outweighs the price, people always what? Buy. When they see Cutco's worth it and it outweighs the price, it's an easy decision to buy. Now, if it's out of their budget, then you can drop down and show them something else. But like if it's too much money for what they're getting, that's too expensive. So how do you handle the too expensive? All right, let's go into the first few pages of the presentation. Let it load here for a moment. There we go. All right. The first thing you're looking for here is this one. Okay. One of the big mistakes that I see new representatives make is that they feel a little awkward about emphasizing the junk page. You got to emphasize the junk page. And sometimes people say, well, we just bought new knives. And then I talk to them on the phone after. I'm like, well, what did they buy? And they're like, I don't know. Well, that's a pretty important question. Because if somebody says, oh, we just bought a new set of knives, okay, well, what did they buy? If they bought a set of Walmart knives, I don't care. That's still garbage. They should still buy Cutco. If they bought a new set of Henkels, not Henkels, excuse me, if they bought a new set of Wusthof or they bought a set of Schoon, well, then I'm going to compliment. I'm going to say, Miss Jones, kudos to you for buying the best. Seems like you really understand quality. Let me show you what a lot of Henkel or a lot of Wusthof owners do. A lot of Wusthof owners just buy our cheese knives and the super shears because they're freaking awesome. And Wusthof doesn't make any of those. Right. And then, by the way, I have sold a lot of super shears and cheese knives to people who own full sets of Wusthof. And then guess what? When they're done with their set of Wusthof, what are they going to do? Call me because they got Cutco in their drawer and the Cutco's guaranteed forever and the Wustof's not. So you really want to ask your customers always what kind of knives they have. And if you want to just write that down, I don't know why that's not in the script. We should probably put that in the script, but you should always just, Ms. Jones, and this is more relative to virtual demos, in-person demos. You actually want to have them grab their favorite knives out and try to have them cut the leather with them, and it'll suck, and they see Cutco's better. But if it's a virtual demo or you haven't gotten your Fast Star prize yet, Ms. Jones, just out of curiosity, what kind of knives do you have? Make her go read the brand. And if you've never heard of it, you're on the computer, Google it while you're talking to her on the phone. And if it's some off-brand Walmart, Target brand, it's like, oh yeah, Mrs. Jones got it. You know what? A lot of customers, you can say that too, by the way. So a reason why the 47th president of the United States says that. What a lot of people, right? In sales, he's just a good salesperson. In sales, nobody wants to be the first person or the last person or singled out. So what you say to him is, Jones, a lot of people really find that the wood-handled knives are really like they're disgusting, they're unsanitary, they're gross, they absorb liquids and bacteria and grease germs. Can you imagine like the raw chicken juice, Mrs. Jones, going into the handles? Isn't that nasty? Ugh. Ms. Jones sets with plastic handles. Oh, those ones are cheaply constructed. They melt, chip, crack. You ever had one of those knives melt, chip, crack, or break? Yeah, it's not very safe at all, right? Ms. Jones, most knives have a partial. Does everybody see how my body language and my expressions are lining up with? Have you struggled with this? Have you ever had this happen? Oh, yeah, isn't that the worst? Yeah, that's why people don't like these. Like, oh, yeah, I don't like those. Sales is actually about eliciting an emotion and problem solving. This is a problem. They will cut themselves with those dull knives. People are worried about sharp knives. Should be way more worried about dull knives because dull knives cause way more accidents. All right. We good on that page. Does everybody understand how you want to like, don't just read it, like really get into it. All right. Here's where you handle too expensive. The next three things I'm going to show you are going to help you handle too expensive so the customer never tells you it's too expensive. All right. So when you go through this word right here, Mrs. Jones, the first feature is a universal wedge lock handle. The cool part about this is it fits any size hand. It locks your hand into place, increasing control and safety. That way it never slips. That way it's always safe in your hand. And it reduces while reducing fatigue. Now, Ms. Jones, this does make Cutco more expensive. It's a one of a kind design, but it's worth it because it's more comfortable and safe. Then we have our thermoresin handle material, Mrs. Jones, which will never chip or crack. It is an expensive material to use. In fact, it's actually really similar to what they build dishwashers out of and football helmets. So really durable. And in fact, the aerospace industry, Mrs. Jones, uses thermoresin to manufacture parts for the airplanes. You could write those down if you want, like those dishwasher, football helmets, aerospace industry. Expensive. Mrs. Jones, the third feature is our full tang construction. Tang means the blade goes through the handle. And you listen, that's expensive. Obviously, we're using more steel, Mrs. Jones, but it creates strength and balance. It makes it so that the blade is never going to pop out. You ever had that happen before where you were cutting through something and then like the knife broke and the blade popped out? Right. So it's more expensive to use the steel, but it makes it stronger, way better. Also, Ms. Jones, the nickel silver is flush with the handle, making it strong and sanitary. Nickel silver, Ms. Jones, I don't know if you know this, it's actually the same material that they use in brass instruments because the valving, they don't want it to change with temperature, and so they'll use nickel silver on the valves for brass instruments. And I don't know if you priced out a saxophone, but those are five figures. So it's expensive, but it's worth it. Mrs. Jones, we also have the our high grade steel. It is expensive to use, but we use it because it's got the best of both worlds. So Ms. Jones, this is never gonna rust, but it's also a high carbon and it's also gonna hold its edge for a very long time. So it makes it sanitary and sharp. Expensive, 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 and here's why. And it's worth it. And by the way, what's more important here is not necessarily all the little things that I'm saying, although those are helpful. What's more important is your attitude towards this whole thing. Does everybody follow that? If your attitude is like, yeah, Ms. Jones, it's expensive and it is worth it. Those are the subtle cues. Phil likes to say the music behind the words. That's the music behind the words that your customers are really picking up on. They're picking up on your vibe. Your vibe is more important than your verbiage. You could write that down actually with the little greater than sign. Vibe is greater than verbiage. Verbiage is helpful, right? But your vibe is more important. And if your vibe, so to speak, your aura, as the kids say these days, uh, is top notch, then they're gonna want to buy. If your aura is sus, Mrs. Jones ain't buying nothing. All right. The unique Edge uses expensive technology. Ms. Jones, see how that cut through that rope? Again, yeah, that's expensive, but it's so worth it. Let me show you the biggest reason why so many people, see how I emphasize that right there? So many people choose to invest in Cutco. Now, listen, whether it's true or not for you at the moment, so many people invest in Cutco. We sold $2.4 million worth of Cutco in the United States last week, in the last 7 days. Whether it's your experience that people are buying Cutco hand over fist at the moment, it's okay because you might be new. But listen, so many people nationwide buy Cutco every single day, every single week, every single year. So it's okay to say that. All right. Does everybody get those expensive cues and the vibe that happens there? All right. Next thing is when you go through the names and uses, make sure that you're having fun, make sure you're telling the jokes, make sure you're asking them what they would use the pieces for. Hey, do you ever do this kind of cooking? Hey, do you ever use chef knives? Hey, do you ever use paring knives? Hey, do you ever cut up small fruits and vegetables? And remember, you want to be a cooking detective. By the time somebody's done with the names and uses section, if I said, hey, Trinity, what does your customers cook? You should know if they are lactose intolerant, gluten intolerant, well done steak intolerant. To cook my steak well done. It better be medium rare at the most, right? You should know if they cook 3 times a week or 30 times, right? So those are things you should know during the names and uses section. So again, telling isn't selling. You're an investigator here. All right. Now, this next part right here, page 8, is the page where your vibe also matters. Mrs. Jones, let me tell you why so many people choose to invest in Cutco. Cutco is not just a flippant purchase, it is an investment. And listen, we know that. You're always going to have sharp American made knives that are comfortable, safe, and sanitary. And in fact, when I was new, okay, my manager said, hey, there's he handed me a white manual and I had a book. It was the same stinking pictures that you have here and the same words. And he said, you should memorize that page. Mrs. Jones, let me tell you why so many people choose to invest in Cutco. You always have sharp American-made knives that are comfortable, safe, and sanitary. Cutco is guaranteed to last forever, so it'd be the last set of knives you'd ever buy. Most people who buy Cutco eat out less if that saves, right? I still have that memorized so that you can look your customer in the soul and tell her why she's never going to need to buy knives ever again. And then he said you should also memorize the next page about the competitors so that you're not like, have you heard of Woostaff or Shun? Okay. These high quality sets made over Mrs. Jones, when it comes to high quality cutlery, it's like anything else. There's a wide variety of quality and prices. And see, Cutco's top rated. So obviously we only compare to the highest quality brands. So have you heard of Woostaff or Shun before? Okay, you haven't? No worries. Or oh, you have? Great. So you're familiar with quality. So these high quality sets made overseas, these are the two top selling brands in stores. By the way, that's not a small detail. These are the two top selling brands in stores, and here's how much they cost. Cutco's not too expensive. Those are the two freaking top selling brands in stores. Cutco is priced better than those guys are. It is a steal to get Cutco when you think about it that way. Pun intended, steal. Um, Each brand has different types of sets, which range in price. Price for this Wusthof set is $3,015. And sometimes you can find it on sale for, ready? Only $2,345. Write that word down. Only. When you talk about our competitors, she toss it out there and be like, yeah, it's only $2,345. And she should pause for a second, Trinity, be like, did he just say only? Well, how much, if he's saying only about 2,345, how much is Cutco going to cost? Because Cutco's better than these guys, right? And then you go through the comparison. And then when you say this, by the way, hey, at twice the price, you're talking $4,000 for, you know, a set of Cutco. And sometimes the mistake the new representatives make is they kind of like gently roll into that number. Hey, at twice the price, you're talking over $4,000 for a set of Cutco. And what the vibe is saying is, oh, but don't worry, it's not that much. Mm-mm. Twice the price, you're talking over $4,000 for a comparable set of Cutco. Because sincerely, if we sold it in stores and you price it against the people who are, listen, we're equal quality to these guys, and they freaking cost twice as much. If we sold in stores, we'd sell it for twice as much, if not more, because it's guaranteed forever, and those guys aren't. And then you go to the homemaker set and you show the price and then you want to ask for the order. And here's my last tip for you. And please forgive me when I say don't be a wimp. Or for some of you, don't be a simp. Okay? Um, don't grovel at the feet of Mrs. Jones and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. It's only 17.15." Mrs. Jones, is 17.15 is the last set of knives you're ever going to buy, and I think it's worth it. Would you like to go ahead and get that today? Now, if she doesn't, I have no emotional attached to that. No problem. My job is to help her figure out what works. And if she says, "Hey, listen, I can't afford that right now, Jesse." Hey, no worries, Ms. Jones. So let me ask you a question real quick. So do you like Cutco? Yeah, we love Cutco. Okay. If you had it, would you use it? I love those two questions. Write that down. So do you, so Ms. So in any time you're clarifying the objection. So do you like Cutco, Mrs. Jones? Okay. If you had it, would you use it? If you get a yes to both of those, you know you're in good stand. If she goes, "Well, I don't really like Cutco. I don't even know if I'd use it that much." Well, we don't have much to like. We've already lost the battle at that point. But 99% of people are like, "Yeah, we like Costco. Of course, we'd use it." Okay, cool, Mrs. Jones. So what it seems like is just too much for the budget. Yeah, it's just too much for the budget right now. No problem, Mrs. Jones. That's actually why most customers put it on 5 pay. So instead of 17.15, it'd only be 347 a day, which is, a lot easier. And then check it out, Mrs. Jones. If you get this set today, I can give you the super shears. I can actually throw in the kitchen tool set for free as well. It's like 300 bucks. Don't tell my manager, but I can give you the kitchen tools and the super shears for free, and you never have to buy another set of knives ever again. Write that down. That phrase right there, and you never have to buy knives ever again. You slip that in there right before you ask for the order. You never have to buy knives ever again, Ms. Jones. So I wouldn't be doing my job. Is that something you'd want to get today? Or is how does that sound? Or do you want to go and do that, Mrs. Jones? Oh, that doesn't work for you? Hey, no worries. It's always no worries. Can I show you another option that I think would be a better fit for you based on what you're telling me? We just asked for permission. How many of you have ever felt like as you were dropping down, you're almost kind of like shoving sets at Mrs. Jones and then being like, we'll see what happens as I show this next option, right? It's almost like this battle, right, Alyssa? It's like, take the galley set, take him in. Mrs. Jones, can I show you another set that I think would be a better fit for you based on what you're telling me? What does I say? I'm asking for your permission. What you're telling me means I'm listening. Everybody that's married knows that arguments aren't actually ever about the thing, Ashley. It's about the fact that we didn't feel heard. Am I right? It's almost never about the actual thing. It's always about, I didn't feel that you actually took into account my feelings and acknowledged those before you made a comment. And then we're just arguing about something completely different. Been married long enough to know how this works. Um, and it's the same for both, by the way. That's the both parties. All right. So, Ms. Jones, can I show you another option that I think would be a better fit for you based on what you tell me? And what's happening here is that you are now, how many of you, this is my favorite now, how many of you have ever gone to a new place to eat and you had a server come up to you, right, Trinity, and you couldn't kind of figure out what you're going to eat on the menu? And maybe you asked or maybe they offered, but the server said, maybe you said like, "Hey, what's good here?" Or what do people get? Has anybody ever got the inside scoop from one of the servers? They're like, "Well, people like this, and this is pretty popular, but what I think is underrated is this one right here." And you're like, "Okay, give me that one." And how many of you have been blown away by that menu? That's kind of like the The less known item. That's the galley set. Ms. Jones, can I show you another set that I think you'd be a better fit for you based on what you're telling me? Ms. Jones, and how many of you have ever got a customer that told you, hey, we'll buy the homemaker set later. Just call me later. And it kind of killed the drop down because they're like, well, no, 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 no. If I'm gonna buy one, I'll just buy the one later. You got to show her the secret menu item. It's Mrs. Jones. Listen, everybody loves the homemaker, but let me ask you this. Do you cut heavy duty stuff all the time? Write that down. Do you cut heavy duty stuff all the time? What's the answer to that? For most people, no. Oh, no, not really, Jesse. Oh, and do you carve a turkey every day? What? No, Jesse, we don't carve a turkey every day. Oh, well, Mrs. Jones, you actually don't need the homemaker. I just spent 45 minutes, 35, whatever, selling her on the homemaker, and then I'm telling her she does not need it. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to sell them off of that one because they're just excited about that one. That's the only one you've gotten excited about so far. So of course that's going to be the one that they're going to promise you they buy later. You got to sell them off of it. Ms. Jones, oh, you don't need a homemaker, Ms. Jones. Let me show you this. Check this out. This is your set. So Ms. Jones, here's a galley set. Check this out. Listen, you got to see this. It's the perfect starter set. Still going to take care of all your needs. It's still got the paring knife and the trimmer and the spatula and the meat knife and the serving piece and the veggie chopper. But Ms. Jones, you said you didn't carve turkey, so obviously we took the turkey carving set out. And you said you didn't heavy duty stuff all the time, so obviously you don't need the butcher knife. This one still comes with 6 table knives. And check this out. This is a few less knives for a lot less money. Now, how do we say this number? When we're talking about the homemaker, 1715. But when we get to the galley set, this is old news. This is last year's ex. This is the old boyfriend from senior year of high school. Old news event. Ms. Jones, instead of paying $1,715 for the homemaker set, check this out. That galley set's only $1,236. And that's only $252 on the 5 pay, and you never have to buy knives ever again. Is everybody seeing like a big difference in at least a handful of these sections between the way maybe you've done your first few appointments and the way the next few appointments are going to go? Now, listen, that was a lot of demos worth of like practice. But how many of you have identified at least one or two, three things? Maybe it's just the vibe, or maybe it's a few verbiage thing right here that you can implement on your next demo. That right there, your attitude towards what you're doing, building the value in the beginning, helping the customer at the end, being excited, all of those, the attitude is going to be huge for you closing your next demos this week. So have fun, do a high-powered demo, and listen, calling in for deals wasn't just a first weekend thing. Call in for deals as long as you stinking. I promise you, none of you have called in. Yeah, none of you have called in enough for deals. I double checked there, and then the answer is still none of you have called in enough for enough. Some of you have called in, some of you have done a really good job, Ryland, some bigger sets, but still, there's bigger deals that you haven't called in for. There are deals, Alyssa, that would melt your face off, right? If you called in for them to hook your customers up with 5 pieces or a galley set or even a starter set with some extra stuff. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention. Have fun this week. Call in for deals. Phone jam is tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'll see you then. Have a good night, guys.